I'm on the bridge of the Polar Star. This is America's only heavy icebreaker capable of blasting a path through the ice in Antarctica for ships. This ship is aging, and soon the Coast Guard will finally replace it as it enters a new phase of polar security, with Seattle playing a central role. At the bottom of the world, the Polar Star works like a giant sledgehammer. Each January, this icebreaker creates a passage for supply ships.
It's jolting.
To McMurdo Research Station in Antarctica.
The ship rides up on the ice and then smashes it down. And it is an absolute vibration throughout the entire ship, going through 10 feet worth of ice. They all have to be self-loading.
Lieutenant Commander Karen Kutkowitz is the Polar Star's operations officer.
Coast Guard cutter Polar Star is 43 years old, built in 1976.
The ship's age means Operation Deep Freeze often gets complicated. So we're heading down toward the engine rooms now?
Yes, we are.
Kutkowitz took me deep below deck and told me about the problems the crew encountered.
It gets really loud in here.
On the last mission, there was flooding.
The water was about here.
And there were fires in a trash incinerator and 2 old switchboards.
If something happens to us, we're the ones that are going to fight any disaster, any emergency that comes our way.
There's no one to come and help.
There's no one.
Roger, out of control fire.
Responding to emergencies has become a way of life on the Polar Star.
Now there's a Class Bravo fire in the emergency generator room.
Responding to emergencies with creative fixes is a way of life.
If you want to call it MacGyverism, that could be you can coin that word.
Captain Gregory Stanslick tells me pieces sometimes need to be flown from the Polar Star's sister ship in Seattle. After major engine failures, the Polar Sea has been out of service since 2010. It's now a floating parts bin.
The majority of the systems on the ship were designed during the Apollo era in the 60s.
The Polar Star is a heavy icebreaker. The country's only other operating icebreaker is the Healy, a medium icebreaker. It was commissioned in 1999 and mostly travels from Seattle to the Arctic Ocean. Ice up north is not as thick, and it's melting fast.
The Arctic is opening up. The receding sea ice is creating an environment where there's water that there never used to be.
Climate change means a new race to control the Arctic, its oil and gas resources, and its shipping routes. There's the Northeast Passage near Russia and the Northwest Passage by Canada and Alaska. By mid-century, ice could melt enough for a transpolar route right through the middle of the now frozen Arctic Ocean.
It is now being forecast that there will be at least one season a year when there is no ice in the Arctic whatsoever.
University of Washington lecturer Scott Montgomery says with more ships in the far north, the U.S. will need to patrol its waters off northern Alaska. Right now, when the Healy isn't there, U.S. Arctic waters are unmonitored. Which really is kind of stunning.
Yeah, it is. And given everything that's happening in the Arctic,
we're barely there.
We're not there in any permanent way. Can't be with one ship.
Other Arctic nations have multiple icebreakers. Russia has 46, but also has a more developed polar region. Years after studies recommended new American icebreakers, there is finally some action. In April, the Coast Guard and the Navy awarded a contract to a Mississippi shipyard for a new heavy icebreaker. It's due in 2024.
We're working as quickly as we can, but it's a slow business.
If the government exercises the option for 2 more ships, the 3 polar security cutters would cost $1.9 billion.
A security cutter is not named that without reason.
It could be a warship as well.
Yes.
The ships will be home-ported in Seattle.
Seattle is the jumping-off point to the Arctic.
Senator Maria Cantwell calls plans for 3 new heavy icebreakers and 3 medium icebreakers a start.
We want to make sure that U.S. vessels have the capacity to move through the Arctic.
For now, America's mission at the top and bottom of the world relies on the Healy and the Polar Star. This old ship keeps going because of its crew.
We are tenacious, we're heroic, and we're the only ship that's capable in the United States to do this mission, so we have to get it done.
Well, if a total of 6 new icebreakers are built and homeported here in Seattle, they won't all be in at the same time, but the Coast Guard will need more room at its dock. The Port of Seattle tells me this is part of its ongoing conversations with the Coast Guard. The Polar Star heads out on its next mission around Thanksgiving. Graham Johnson, Cairo 7 News.